Welcome to the Masters Alliance podcast, and I am Herb Perez. Today we are joined by Chris Casamassa, 10th degree black belt in the Red Dragon schools, owner and operator of over 17 schools. More importantly, he has been everything from an actor, stunt person, successful business entrepreneur, and now a leader amongst leaders, teaching children and best school owners how to be better. Strap in. This is going to be an amazing podcast. Welcome to the Masters Alliance podcast, Uncut. And uncut is a great word because we talk about pretty much anything and everything. And today I'm joined by a good friend, great friend, who taught me a lot about what was necessary, certainly in what I call Hollywood. He's been able to take that skill and use the same skills that he used to become an amazing martial artist and transcend not only that arena, but acting and everything else, but more importantly now as a speaker and a motivator of young children. Welcome, Chris Casamassa.
Thank you, sir. Happy to be here.
Or as I like to call you, the Red Dragon, and certainly well-earned, the many things you've done. But I want to start with, I know you had a close relationship with your dad. What was it like to train with your father, a martial arts pioneer from such a young age?
Well, it's a fantastic first question. So let's dive in. First of all, just in the grand scheme of things, it was great. I had a front row seat to the early days of martial arts in America. I got to watch firsthand one of the guys who helped bring mixed martial arts into the forefront of today's culture. So that part of it was great. Now, as anybody who is in the martial arts knows, working with your family has its super high highs and its super low lows, because when you do shit wrong, it's never about what you did wrong. It's about what you did when you were 6 years old. So working with family is a double-edged sword. And but fortunately for me, listen, I had way more great times than I had bad times. And like I said, I got to watch, in my opinion, one of the greats when it comes to martial arts in America. You know, he's my dad, so I'm a little prejudiced, but literally I always looked at him like a modern day Michelangelo. He created something out of nothing. And until he passed away, he was creating until his very last days. So he was an innovator, he was a pioneer, and I was happy to have that opportunity to basically have that front row seat.
And again, I'm sorry for his passing. I know it's been a minute or two for that, and sorry for your loss. But
Thank you.
Hopefully this is not too personal of a question, but you know, what were one or two, or just even one of the most important lessons that you learned from him?
The most important lesson was that passion trumps everything. If you have a passion for what you do, success generally will follow when it comes from the heart. If you're in it just for the money, if you're in it just for the fame, you're in it for the wrong reasons. And the truth is, people can smell bullshit a mile away. So that was probably one of the biggest things. And the second biggest thing was, don't go halfway. Like, fully commit to what it is that you're going to do and give it 1,000% of what you've got. And if it works, cool. And if it doesn't, then pivot and do something else.
Well, you've achieved just an outstanding accomplishment in the martial arts. You have reached the 9th level degree black belt. What motivated you to continue that journey despite all these other successes you've had in life?
Well, just a point of clarity, I'm actually 10th degree now, which when my dad passed, that title went to me. So yeah, there's that. What motivated me was, and listen, as cliche as it's going to sound, it's true. My dad was my hero. And I always aspired to be not like him, but to follow in his footsteps, because I'm my own person. He always encouraged me to be my own person. But he was someone that I always looked up to. And I got started in the martial arts, I was 4 years old, because I wanted to be around my dad. And, we're going to kind of turn a little bit here. My dad was a great martial artist and loved the martial arts. But on the business side of things, he didn't really know what he was doing. He was from the Marine Corps. He was a cop. And he decided, I love martial arts more than anything, and I want to make that my living. And so he learned all of his lessons the hard way. But one of the hard ways was my dad was never home. He was always at the studio. And I learned at a very young age, you want to see daddy, you got to go to karate. And so that got me involved with it. But once I got involved with it, I kind of got hooked on it. And again, one of the important lessons he told me was he said, listen, if you want to start, you can, but you are not allowed to stop or quit until you make it to black belt. And of course, you're 4 years old. You're like, okay, dad, whatever. And there was times during my training where I wanted to give up, and I didn't make my black belt till I was 10, which at that time, was unheard of, having a 10-year-old kid black belt. But that was 6 years of training. And when I was 8, I wanted to quit. When I was 9, I wanted to quit. He wouldn't let me. And he taught me about that dedication and perseverance at a very young age. And he said, now you're a black belt, you can quit. Well, as anybody knows, to get to black belt, like I was hooked. That was a drug for me. I wasn't going anywhere. Like I had that black belt and I felt like, a superhero at that time. So that always motivated me and kept me interested. And the other thing that really kept me interested, as you know, being in the martial arts for a super long time, there's so much to learn. Like I can't possibly know it all. There are so many styles, so many cultures, so many cool things to learn. I feel like Indiana Jones every day. I get to uncover and discover new things. The martial arts is thousands of years old. So for one person to know all of it, it's not possible. So I was always excited about the learning about where this came from, where that came from, how this got started. How did this guy do it? Why did this guy stand under a waterfall? Why did this guy create the Kodokan? Like I was always curious about those things. And that curiosity really kept me going.
And how has your approach to the martial arts evolved over the years since you started at such a young age? And there were all these great learning moments that you probably had. What is the biggest evolution you've seen in yourself or in your training?
Change is constant. I think that's the biggest evolution. And I think so many people nowadays in the martial arts get married to these traditions and this old way of doing things and these cultures that were devised 50, 100, 1,000 years ago. And they're paying homage, which is, it's okay on one part of it. But listen, the world changes, people change. And if you don't adapt to what's happening and what's going on, if you don't embrace new ideas and new concepts, then you're going to stagnate and die. And one of the things I say when I'm on stage all the time is change is constant, and it's important to adapt and evolve, because you know who else didn't evolve? The dinosaurs. And we all know what happened to them. So that I never wanted to be a dinosaur in the industry. I always wanted to respect tradition, but to embrace innovation.
In your content and your responses, you've knowingly or unknowingly quoted some very influential people and philosophers, including Deepak Chopra, which said, he said, do what you love and everything will follow, right? All the goodness will follow and money will follow. You don't have to chase money. And the last thing you said, which is actually Einstein, is about entropy and Jeff Goldblum actually in Jurassic Park.
All right.
That's some Hollywood writer. But and how many Red Dragon studios are you guys up to now?
We are currently up to 17 locations here in Southern Cal.
Yeah, my information was a little off. I had you at 14. So what's the biggest challenge of overseeing 17 locations?
17 egos.
Can they run a school without the egos though? Can they do?
Listen, you have to have it, because with that ego is that self-confidence and self-assuredness. And really that was more of a joke. The 17 men and women that I have that are part of our company are all awesome. We are a family. We're in this together. And just like any family, we have our dysfunctions, right? There's ups, there's downs. So, but we're together. And as they buy into the vision that we have for Red Dragon more and more, that togetherness creates a strong bond, and that bond makes us even better.
And that gets a little bit to the next question, is the business side of the martial arts. And how do you balance the business side of martial arts with the passion for teaching and inspiring young people?
It's actually easier than most people believe, because it goes back to what I said. When someone's on the floor with me, and by the way, I've seen you teach. So when someone's on the floor with you, there is no doubt in both the student or the parent's mind that the person doing the teaching right now loves this more than anything on the planet. There is a passion that comes from the love that we have from the art that we enjoy giving to the students that we teach. And that can be felt. And that's why I said earlier, people can tell bullshit a mile away. you know an instructor that's in it just for the money. They don't care. They're disconnected. They're, you know, just they care more about themselves than they do about the student. When I watch you teach, when I see great instructors teach, I know that it's all about the person they're teaching at that moment. Whether it's 1 or 100 on a floor is irrelevant. It's the passion that comes from it. So if you have that, you don't instantly make money. Let me just clear that up right away. Just because you're passionate about, because I know a bunch of passionate martial artists that are dead ass broke because they don't know how to bridge that gap. And it comes to basic business things like knowing to pay your rent on time, paying your light bill, your phone, electric, internet. There's so many things that go along with running a business. And just because you're a black belt and you hang your shingle out the front door going, hey, I'm open, and you think the world's going to flood to you, it doesn't work like that. In the late 70s, early 80s, maybe, not today. So it's important that anybody who is listening to this right now, if they're in business, understand and know about business. And if you don't, if you're not sure, if you're struggling, man, get yourself a business mentor, get yourself a coach, or at least follow people who are successful so that you can see, okay, what made this person successful? How did they do it? Rather than pointing fingers and going, oh, that's a McDojo, that person's selling out. Maybe you should point a thumb and go, maybe I need to figure some shit out so that I can be successful and make a living at my passion.
And I think that's true. And those words are well said and well heard by me. I think that I've seen so many of my mentors who were true martial artists in their minds, and they were martial artists, and that's all they cared about. And then they couldn't take care of themselves or their families. And some of the best advice I got early on from one of my mentors was take care of your family and the things that you need to do for your family first, and then take care of the world. And I think that's a great philosophy. I know that you've had a number of programs, and the Kid Fitness program and the B90X. Can you tell me a little bit about those, or the ones that you may be involved in now, and what are the core philosophies?
Yeah, those are all part of the coaching and consulting that we do. It's B90Z, which is a birthday party program, and the kids fitness program, which is now morphed into the Bullyproof program. But the Bullyproof initiative, quick sidebar here. I'm on a mission right now. Part of my passion and purpose nowadays, I'm trying to help 1 million kids become bullyproof by putting them through a certification course that we have. As of right now, this recording, I've taught just over 80,000 kids through this course. And I do these clinics at martial arts studios. I do them at public schools, private schools, churches, rec centers, wherever I can get in. It was one of the reasons why I wrote the books. I wrote 3 books on bully prevention for kids to get the word out. And right now, my agent and I are negotiating with Disney on potentially being able to do a weekly TV show featuring anti-bullying segments. And if I do that, man, I'm gonna hit 1 million like overnight. But that's part of the goal. So all those programs that I've created that have helped over 1,000 martial arts schools at this point are all now part of our concierge coaching and consulting program that we've put together. But it's really about, for me, the reason I started doing is I want to help other people in the industry, right? We talked about that. Listen, my dad was a fantastic martial artist, but he didn't know jack shit about business, right? And so, like I said, he learned all the lessons the hard way. Because I had the front row seat, I was taking notes. I was paying attention to make sure, okay, this worked, this didn't. This worked, this didn't. And now next year is our 60th year in business. Like Red Dragon's been around for 60 years, 6 decades. And I wanted to go another 6 decades. So we've documented everything. We've got systems and processes. And my catchy little saying is, our systems have systems. Like there's nothing that happens in our company by accident. It is all by design. It is all on purpose. And it is all planned for a reason. Of course, and by the way, this goes without saying, the quality on the floor we're assuming that. Like, because people are like, oh, I got to make money. First, you got to teach great classes. You got to develop great students, because that's the product. The product that we sell is, how did I change that kid's life? How did I take that kid from zero to hero, from a kid who was shy and introverted getting his ass kicked to one who's self-confident, self-assured, now doing way better in school? If you're not doing that with your students, that's the first thing you have to fix. Quality trumps everything, right? It's quality first. Quality first.
That was the question I had that you've answered, which was what are the things that you're teaching your other business owners. But I'm going to move on. I want to talk a little bit about, and I was there to witness some of it, but how did you transition from martial arts to acting?
Great question. So when I was young, Bruce Lee was the guy, right? And me and everybody in the martial arts at that time, like, I want to be Bruce Lee. So I wanted to be my dad, but I also love Bruce Lee. And I would watch Bruce Lee in movies, TV stuff, and I'd be like, man, I want to do that. I want to have the ability to do that. It would be cool to do martial arts on screen, to make it, get a bigger audience and to do that. And so I started taking steps in that direction. And I did little, I'm in California, so it's kind of easier access to, go do this movie or go do that movie. But I started out as background player. I started out as an extra, which like you just basically you're part of a crowd in the scene. And so I kind of worked my way up. And then fortunately, because I developed a skill good enough, that skill opened some doors and caught some eyes and caught some attention. But listen, again, it's back to my dad. So when I was first doing movies and TV, my dad said, listen, when you get on these sets, here's the important thing. When people tell you what to do, you look them in the eyes and you say, yes, sir. And you continue to say, yes, sir, and you do what they tell you to do. He goes, when you have $1 million in the bank, you look at them and you say, yes, sir, but do you think we could try this? And that was great advice because the goal is to be humble, right? The worst thing that you could do is go onto a movie set where you know nothing about that world. And it's just like you're God's gift to that world. And so it was the secret there my dad taught me was be humble, but be curious and learn while you're going. And so I did little stuff here and there, but as you know, because you were getting ready and doing the Olympics, I was on the pro tour for NASCA, the North American Sport Karate Tour, because you won gold medal in '92.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So I started on the pro tour in '84, '85 and got my rear end kicked for the first 3-4 years. And it wasn't until '89, from '89 to '92, that 4-year grid is when I finally became the #1 competitor in the world. Right. I was #1. So you and I were #1s almost at the same time, which is great. You were doing the thing with the Olympics, which is awesome. And I'm so that would be a life goal for me. I mean, the thing that you did is freaking great. But I was on the pro tour doing that, and I got scouted when I was at the Battle of Atlanta. Joe Corley and Pat Johnson, who you know, Pat had a project, and Joe Corley actually recommended me for it. It was a movie called Shoot Fighter. And when I was competing, I had this persona, this bigger than life thing. And listen, I was young and dumb and cocky as all hell, but it worked for competition. I had to have that when I got up on that stage. Like, I am God's gift to the competition world. It had to come across to the audience, to the judges, the whole thing. Pat didn't like me. He didn't want me. But Joe knew me from the circuit. He knew I was actually a nice guy that was talented. Pat goes, listen, this guy's good, but he's an asshole. And he wasn't wrong. But you don't want a person like that on your sets, on your movie sets. And Pat was doing, he'd done Ninja Turtles, did the original Karate Kid. And so Joe said, listen, just take a chance on him. And he did. And that was the Shoot Fighter movie that Mike Bernardo starred in, and Billy Zabka and Marty Cove. And that was really kind of my first foray into it. And then the thing that kicks in the movie world is it's not who you know, it's who knows you. And now Pat knew me. He knew that he could trust me. He knew I was actually a good guy that was talented. And so as he would do different projects, my phone would ring. Hey, do you want to come do this? Hey, do you want to come do that? So it opened a lot of doors that would have normally been closed to me.
I have a funny Pat story, but we share the commonality. For whatever reason, he didn't like me when he first met me and took me into the office to tell me that he just had a feeling about me, and I had not said anything, done anything. And I think it had a lot to do with the Olympic thing, and he just assumed I was a certain way. But it was an interesting time, but that's a story for another day. What was it like to be part of the iconic movies? I mean, you were in the, Karate Kid, Mortal Kombat, Batman. Can you tell us a little bit about what it was like to be part of all that?
Surreal is the best word I can use when I'm talking about those. The Mortal Kombat was the thing that really put me over and really made it where I was able to get some bigger and better projects. And I got the Mortal Kombat role almost by accident. And I think they were looking for martial artists to do background in the movie, and it was a big budget Hollywood movie, and I'd never been in when I'd done Shoot Fighter, Revenge of the Ninja, like basically B movie stuff. But this was going to be the first A type of movie that I have an opportunity to get in. And I went to the audition. They were looking for background fighters. There was like 100 guys at this audition. It was crazy, but they had it set up like a tournament. They had 3 people in chairs. I had no idea who they were. And they had like this square performance area. And they said, just come up and do your best stuff. Well, this played right into my wheelhouse. I'm like, this is a tournament. And I got a chance to go like near the end. So I was watching everybody. I'm like, that guy sucks. That guy's good. That guy's good. Oh, that guy's really good. Like, and so now I'm thinking, what can I do to set myself apart? Because there were some guys that were there that at that time were probably a little better than me. And I was like, okay, I got an idea. So they call me up and I go start doing my form. And as they're sitting in the chair, I realize I can jump over these guys. So I have a part in my thing where I do a flying sidekick in the beginning of my kata. I just took 3 extra steps and I did it over them sitting in the chairs. And to this day, I remember them slow motion. It's a podcast, but I watched their heads look like this. Just watch me jump over. I did some moves behind them. And then I did a diving roll back over them and I finished. And I was like, okay, well, hopefully that was enough. And I go home. This was way before cell phones. And I go home, my phone rings. And like, hey, we want you to come back tomorrow. I'm like, all right, cool. So I come back the next day. And now there's maybe 25 guys. And they go, we want you to do some more stuff. So I did some more stuff. Go home that night. Phone rings again. We want you to come back tomorrow. I'm like, oh my God, it's so hard to be an extra. Like, I don't even get it. Because the first day we were there, by the way, when all the 100 guys were there, they're like, listen, all the roles are cast, all it's filled. We just need background guys. We want real martial artists to do the background, some of the background fighting. Great. So now my third callback. And I'm like, man, it's hard to be an extra in an A-list movie. And I go back the third time, and there are 3 guys, me and 2 other guys. They have a big 35 millimeter movie camera. There's a bunch of people around it. I know none of these people are. And a guy walks over to me, and we're just standing there. They don't ask us to do any martial arts. The guy walks over to me, he looks at me and goes, he looks at all 3 of us and says, would you guys mind taking off your shirts? And I looked at him, and I'm kind of a smart ass, and I was nervous as hell. So I looked at him, I go, listen, if it'll help me get in this movie, I'll go back to your trailer. Right. And so you're laughing and no one can see this, but you're laughing. And that's the reaction I was hoping for. But that didn't happen. The dude looked at me stone faced and said nothing. And I was like, okay, whatever this is, I just lost it. I'm not getting it. So I was in great shape. I still try and keep myself in great shape. We take off our shirts. We're standing there and I'm, trying to look like I'm not flexing, but I'm flexing. I look over to my left and the guy on my left, he's kind of heavy set. Guy on my right is like a Furby. He's like all furry and stuff. A lot of body hair. And so they take the camera and they're filming us. It was the weirdest thing. They take the camera and they're filming us. And then they go into like this football huddle behind the camera. And for what seemed like 10 minutes, it was probably 30 seconds. And the guy who came over to us to take their shirts off, he walks up to me and he shakes my hand. And he goes, welcome to Mortal Kombat. You're going to be Scorpion. And until that moment, I had no idea. And I don't know to this day, and I've asked Larry Kasanoff, the producer, many times, like, did you really have somebody or was it an open call audition where you just weren't telling people? He still hasn't told me what was going to happen. But I didn't know. And looking back on it, like if they had said, hey, these roles are open, I probably would have been nervous. I may have not done what I did in the grand scheme of things. And the funny end to that story is I got home and I called my mom. I go, mom, I got in this movie. I'm going to be Scorpion. She goes, that's great, honey. What's a scorpion? So that's how I got that. And then once I got that, it was a little easier to get to, I got to do Batman right after that. And then Blade right after that.
Well, that's going to lead into my next question. What was it like to double for, I mean, listen, I think you look like him, but what was it like to double for George Clooney in Batman and Robin?
That was, I mean, again, a super surreal experience. And, I'm probably one of only 25 people on the planet that's ever actually worn the real bat suit from the movie. And so Pat Johnson, who did the fight choreography for that, he did Mortal Kombat. He invited me to come over to Batman. He goes, I think you can double George Clooney. And I go, okay, cool. And I went in and got to meet the director, Joel Schumacher. And I didn't have to do any martial arts just because Pat pulled me in. And I went and met Joel, and Joel was flamboyant, to put it mildly. And I walked in and met him. Hey, how you doing? And he walked up to me, he grabs me by the chin. He goes, oh my God, you are perfect. Your chin is exactly like George Clooney, which it is. Actually, we have the exact same chin. And because, with the mask on, all you're seeing is the chin. He goes, you are perfect. Same height, same chin. I love it. Thanks, Pat. Boom. I walked out. That was my audition for Batman. And so we got that. But the coolest thing about that, one of the coolest things was the movie previous to Batman and Robin was Batman Forever with Val Kilmer. So what they do is they repurpose the suits. So the next movie, the suits from that previous movie become the stunt suits that you rehearse in. So when they outfitted me and they put me in the bat suit, I looked in the front of the chest piece and it said Kilmer on it. So I had Val Kilmer's bat suit that I got to take pictures in and practice and do all the stuff in for the movie. And then they had a thing called the beauty suits. And they have a trailer that is called the Bat Trailer. And the only thing in there are the Batman suits. And they've got like 50 of them because, something happens to one, they got to replace with the other. So that experience of going into that, and it would take 25 to 30 minutes to put the suit on. Like in the movie, you see him, he gets in that thing in like 5 seconds. Yeah, don't happen. That thing takes forever for it. But listen, it was really cool. I got to meet Arnold Schwarzenegger, Uma Thurman, Chris O'Donnell, Alicia Silverstone. So to get to hang out and meet with those people on set was just surreal. The only bad thing about Batman and Robin, looking back on it, was they cut out all our fight scenes. We did more fight scenes in that bat suit than they'd ever done in any Batman movie, and we did some great stuff. And Clay Barber, who was Robin's double, him and I together. I mean, we did some great stuff that is somewhere on the cutting room floor that they just didn't put in the movie. Because what I think happened was at that time, George Clooney wasn't George Clooney. He had just come off of ER. He did another movie with Nicole Kidman that did okay. And then they put him in Batman. But they didn't trust that he was going to be able to carry the movie. So if you go back and watch Batman and Robin, which I don't recommend, if you go back and watch it, it's more about Mr. Freeze and Poison Ivy, which were Arnold Schwarzenegger and Uma Thurman, who at that time were huge stars. It's more about them and Batgirl than it actually is about Batman. So they cut out a lot of our fight scenes. That was at the premiere. I was really bummed out about it because we would do the fight scenes on set. The crew would give us standing ovations, like the stuff they were like, we've never seen stuff like that because you know how talented Clay is, right? So I'm trying to keep up with him. That dude can kick like nobody's business. But we came up with some really really creative fight scenes that unfortunately didn't make the final cut of the movie.
Well, I don't know, and you may not know this, but the casting director for that, Finn, she was a friend of Dan Hupp's from WMAC Masters. And so I got a phone call from Macho. They were looking for the next Robin. And so they asked me if I had anybody, right? And I gave them two of my students. One kid, just amazing looking, Puerto Rican, Swedish kid, Angelo Perez, amazing, and then another kid from Norway. And both of these kids were really good martial artists. They had trained me for quite some time, and they went through about 4 or 5 callbacks with Molly Finn is her name.
Oh yeah,
she passed away. Her son was a friend of Dan's from the art world. Long story short, they ended up obviously casting what was that kid's what was Robin's the actor?
Chris O'Donnell.
They cast Chris O'Donnell instead, but had they cast these two kids, because she had found it from Terminator, then it would have been a different movie, maybe just for the martial arts at least, because these kids could actually do martial arts. But I remember all of that. But I've always been so happy and proud for you of all those opportunities you had. But how do you balance your busy career with your personal life and without prying?
Well, when I did Batman and Mortal Kombat, I wasn't married. I was young and single and still ready to mingle. So it was a lot easier at that time. Nowadays, I'm married. I got 2 kids, so it becomes a little more challenging to do that. But it's the answer to your question is just scheduling and learning to say no. Like there's stuff I have to turn down nowadays that I can't crowbar another thing into my schedule.
What are your interests outside of the martial arts and acting?
Snowboarding and mountain bike riding.
I did not know that.
I love snowboarding. It's really one of the things. And listen, as I get older, I've gotten into golf. Unfortunately, it's very stereotypical and cliche. Oh, an old guy golfing. Yeah.
I can't.
It's actually cool.
I can't golf, but snowboarding. I'm a big fan of skiing because it's just a lot easier to get up and down. But what advice would you give to young people who are interested in pursuing martial arts or acting?
I will give them the same advice that our friend Pat Johnson gave me early on in my career. This was on the set of Shoot Fighter, one of the first things I did with him. He gave me some great advice because I had some speaking lines and stuff, and I wasn't doing well. I wasn't an actor at that point because I hadn't taken any acting lessons. I was just a martial artist that thought he could act, and there's a big difference between those two people. So he came up to me one day on set and he goes, "Chris, I want to tell you something. Chris, my son, as he would say to us all the time, right on WMAC. He said, "Listen, they can take a great actor and make him look like a martial artist, but they cannot take a great martial artist and make him look like an actor. You need to take acting lessons." And I took that advice to heart, and I did, and I signed up, took acting lessons for 6, 7 years, uh, just going through and three different acting coaches because different styles. You got improv, you got drama, you got comedy. Um, so that advice served me well because it helped me land some roles that I wouldn't have gotten had I not taken those lessons. The other thing I would say is learn to understand that no doesn't mean you're no good. Like I can't tell you, Herb, the amount of times I heard no, and I'm sure you have too. No, you're not right for this. No, you're not right for that. It doesn't mean you're not good. It just means a casting director has a job. They've got to make that character be the person off the page on the screen. Sometimes you don't have the right look. Sometimes you're not delivering your acting lines the right way, or you're just not the right body type of what they're looking for. It's very specific on roles that they cast. But the thing for that to remember is this: you're a no for that one. But like Molly Finn, the casting director, okay, you're not right for that. But they cast other projects. And if you're respectful and you're kind and you're humble and you do the right things, you do a good job, but you're just not right for that role. They go, hey, I remember that Chris guy. He wasn't right for that movie, but I think this one's going to be good for him. Let's give him a call. And so I would get calls like that on other castings that I went to that the answer was no, no, no. And I'd get pulled into other projects.
And I have one last question, and it's, are you involved or do you have any plans of becoming involved in, I mean, what's next for you? Do you have any more film or television projects, or is it business, the Mortal Kombat, the business combat thing that you're doing? What's next for you?
What's next for me? Number one on the agenda is pushing forward on my bullyproof program. Hopefully, getting that on Disney and doing that, and that combines both my love of martial arts and my love of film and television. That would be great. So I'm pushing forward with that. We'll find out what happens first quarter of 2025 with that. I've got another kids book for bullyproof prevention that I'm going to launch. Our goal, we're at 17 Red Dragon locations. My first goal is next stop is 25. I want to get us to 25. If we get 25 and I can stabilize, I'm going to shoot for 50. Because listen, and you know this, Herb, what we do changes lives and it saves lives. The amount of students and parents that I've talked to and run into over the years that says, my kid still remembers you and he remembers what you taught him and blah, blah, because now it's generational for me. I've been teaching for almost 40 years. So I'm on almost my third generation of people. I've got kids of kids who are bringing me their kids. So not only do I feel old, but I feel honored that like you taught my dad and you taught my grandpa. I'm like, I taught your grandpa? Holy cow. That's crazy. Um, so we're pushing forward with that. I do a ton of public speaking. So listen, I'm not stopping. I'm a rolling stone that's going to gather no moss. So I'm doing public speaking. I'm writing books. I'm doing the bulletproof thing. I did a movie with Master Ken last year called Cop versus Killer, which is out on Amazon. Whose real name is Matt Page. So I'm still doing that. I'm working. We've got a couple film projects that I'm going to do next year as well. So I'm still doing all the things that I did because I enjoy it and I love it. And I'm very blessed to be able to make a really good living at the things that I love.
Well, I think that's the cap to a great conversation today, because the one thing I've always respected and admired and I enjoyed working with you the short period of time that I did get to on WMAC Masters, and the cast and crew and characters that we had the benefit of spending time with. I mean, some of the best, in my opinion, some of the best martial artists, striking, but the with the exception of one or two, but what an amazing time that was an amazing life. But the thing that has always impressed me about you, Chris, is that you don't stop. Many people just stop. They either stop doing martial arts or they stop finding and doing what their passion was. And the thing that you said, which I'm going to remember, and I always like to have a takeaway for people, is we help people. And you have helped and continue to help many people. I've been a beneficiary of that during that time. And over the years that we've stayed in touch, you've always been that positive influence. And I love your story about your confidence and your what some might perceive to be something different than that. But You just used it in such an amazing way. And I wish you the best as you continue to help people do what we do it better, whatever it takes for them to understand that, because I know that your business seminars resonate with people, and I know that they sign up there for a reason. If somebody wanted to get involved in your programs, where would be the best place for them to find you?
Well, listen, I'm the easiest guy to find on social media. I'm on all the platforms: Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, YouTube. I'm pretty easy to find. The challenge is spelling my last name. But you could go to, our studio, which is reddragonkarate.com, or you can go to businesscombat.com, and that's combat with a K, a little tongue-in-cheek reference to Mortal Kombat, for more information on that. But Herb, listen, you're a humble guy too. So don't sell yourself short. We crushed on WMAC Masters, and the cast that they put together on that was made up of the best martial artists in the country at that time. So
even if we don't say so ourselves,
even if we don't say so, I'm going to say it for you. Okay, and if you've never seen Herb kick, I've never seen someone kick that hard in my life. You actually scared me the first time I heard you kick a shield. And so I was super impressed with you. And I knew you had won the Olympics and stuff, so I knew you were no joke.
well,
But we had a blast on that show.
We had a blast on that show, and we got to do pull-up and push-up workouts on Pat Johnson. Grab bar. And then we spent as much time in the gym, and I was jealous because I could never look, no matter what I did, I couldn't get a tricep like you guys had. And nobody wanted to take their shirt off in front of Richie Hakeem or Mike Bernardo. Those guys had it. Well, Chris, thanks again for today. I know you have a busy schedule, but we'll have to do it again. I appreciate you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on the show, man.
Well, that was an amazing podcast. And I even learned a few things about Chris Casamassa that I did not know before. 10th degree black belt, still inspiring younger generations to succeed, but more importantly, bringing others along that journey that can help others. His words about inspiring others and leaving a legacy will last with me for a long time, and I hope they do with you as well. Don't forget to check out our other podcast. And again, this has been a Masters Alliance podcast, uncut, and I'm Herb Perez. See you next time.